Good evening, everyone, and thank you for making it on this really pleasant Saturday evening, which has come after a long spell of a lot of rain. And I'm so delighted to be here in conversation with you, Tisca, because for those of you who don't know the backstory, Tisca has been my lucky charm for 2 books. She's launched 2 books of mine, and I'm very delighted to be here for this book, which is an important book and one which was much needed in the Indian context. Right off the bat, Tisca, what made you decide to write this book?
First of all, this is an interesting situation for me because we already launched the book. As Vidhi mentioned, the story behind this book is more interesting than anything else. So Vidhi is my junior from school. She's my editor, and she used to call me Tisca Didi in school because she was my brother's classmate. And she came to me in the lockdown. I think it was the lockdown, right? Yeah. And we were talking about. She said, "Can you write like a sort of letter from a mother to a daughter? Since you have a young daughter, you want to write a book about how it is to navigate puberty." And then from the letter it evolved. We went back and forth, and so the lockdown was productive in that I got to do a bit of writing. But what was most interesting was, so they sent me a mock-up of the book with a large font and a thicker sort of copy, and they marked it to Tara. And she picked up the book, and otherwise during the lockdown you're like, mama, 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 after every 5 minutes. But for like 45 minutes there was radio silence. And she was sitting curled up in one corner and reading the book, and so she was my first critic.
First beta reader for the book.
Yes. And her first question after reading the book was, "Mama, we talk about boys." I was like, I have some idea on that matter. So yes, the reason for writing the book actually was, of course it was Vidhi's idea. But what came to me was, I had gone to buy sanitary napkins at a chemist store. And just outside the chemist store was a pan ki dukaan. And some guy, as I was going in, bought some gutka. And he was just given the gutka essay, like that guy opened it with a frill and all the gutka packets came down like that. And he gave it to him. And when I went into the bookstore, it was just registered in the back of my head that this had happened. I went inside, and the salesperson at the chemist shop wrapped the sanitary napkins in newspaper and then in a black plastic bag. And I was like, look at the irony of this. So I said, "Mujhe nahi chahiye." Something, madam. So I was like, "Nahi chahiye. Kuch chupane ki zarurat nahi hai. 50% of the planet will get their period, and let's finally open this discussion up, because if somebody didn't get their period, that would be a problem. So let's stop talking about it like it's a disease and that it's a problem. If it doesn't happen, is a problem. But we need to demystify this whole area, and that's when I said that our idea about puberty is completely misplaced. Idea about before they hit puberty, children are just bacche. There's just one amorphous group called bacche, and then as soon as a girl gets her period, it starts being like, don't do this, don't do that. It becomes, so I thought that when we talk about equality and we talk about the idea of men and women getting a similar space on the planet, it's very important to understand where that thing actually starts. So I think it starts at puberty.
And normalizing these conversations around puberty, I think this is a good starter for families that, really find it uncomfortable to talk about these things. And back in my time at least, and my school is just opposite, we had one lecture when we were in grade 8, where a doctor came in and explained it to us with diagrams. I don't think that is needed anymore, because children have the internet and all that. Because they have the internet, and because they have so many resources available to them at the touch of a button, at a click of a mouse, there's so much possibility of them getting wrong information. So what was your research process like? Because I know while it is explaining stuff, you also need to be factually very accurate. How did you go about that research process to get this book done?
There's 2 people who came in to help make this book possible. One was Dr. Mala, who was the chairman of FOXY, which is the Gynecological Association, and there's Dr. Malvika Verma, who's a psychotherapist, both of whom factored in and gave me sort of, exact details about what is best, what kind of, so for example, a simple thing like when a girl first starts to get her period, the cramping. So, there's a lot of talk about don't work out, don't exercise, don't do this, don't do that. The opposite is what is actually recommended. Please go for a walk. Don't do strenuous exercise on your abdomen, but please do everything else because it helps the clots to sort of clear out and have a better flow. So, simple things like that, which I think the idea is to demystify, and the idea is also to get fathers into the mix. That was the big idea for me, because I felt that somewhere it should become so normal that a girl should say, "Dad, on your way to the office, just get me my tampons or my sanitary napkins." It should be that normal. Why should it be that, oh no, this is something, the whole achar kharab ho jayega, and that whole thing, kitchen mein nahi jana. These are old notions which were put into place when there wasn't running water. Because there wasn't that kind of hygiene available to people, so it was said कि अच्छा भी kitchen में नहीं जाओ or whatever. अचार खराब होता है, कुछ नहीं खराब होता. Just putting it out there नहीं होता. None of these things happen. It isn't that anything is going to go wrong. And I hope that girls who read this book, and I hope it, we can, along with Vidhi and West and Red Panda, manage to get the book in schools. Yeah.
Not just girls, I think boys should also read this book, because most boys are absolutely unaware of what happens. I think they think it's like a one-time thing that happens once in your life, and they have no idea about cramps. I mean, cramps, as you all might know, doctors have recently said they're equivalent to the pains of a heart attack. Menstrual cramps. Tara was your first beta reader. What about other girls who have read it? What kind of feedback have you got, other young girls?
So I put it on the school group when it first came out, and they were a lot younger because it was a year and a half back. But the response was unbelievable. There is, parents always look for a starting point, and so all of her friends have actually read the book. They've been given copies of the book, and they have read it cover to cover in a day, 2 days, 2 days, 3 days, and they're like, because we address not just the menstrual flow and all of that, we're also discussing things like body hair, the growth of breasts, changes in your body, changes in your hormones, making your parents grow up with you, bringing them up to speed and telling them what snatched means, and all of those things. So how to deal with parents as well, and I've tried to sort of look at it from the perspective of how parents can be very daunting and unreasonable. Also somewhere to take out sort of obliterate the idea of that these are not conversations that can happen. Normal conversations. I have a headache, I've got my period, all of that. And then hopefully these same girls will have some sort of understanding in the workspace as time passes, because there's this whole conversation about getting a couple of days off when you're on your period. Would those be paid days or unpaid days and all of that? So I think it starts from sort of, this is the baseline in a way.
What do you feel are the biggest myths regarding menstruation that we need to dispel?
At the risk of creating an absolute furore, temples.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If there is a God, I don't know, I sit on the fence about that one. But if there is a God, then he or she helped create that whole process. And then how can they judge it and say that, okay, this is a time when you can't come to me. Why? Because? So, I don't understand that. So for me, it's just illogical to have that whole idea, and that you're impure on these days and all of that. So it just seems archaic, and I hope it leads to a larger conversation, and I hope that my house is not burned.
So we will get away from the controversial bits right now before the trolls start
Or
attacking
not,
you.
or not, or not.
Tell me, Tisca, you have written this book, and your earlier book was something about acting and your entire journey into the world of acting. That was a very different voice. This is a very different voice. And here you are writing for young girls. How did you manage to switch your voice? Did it come naturally because you were dealing with a young girl, or did you have to really work on it and you and Vidhi had to sort of work and rework till you got the voice right?
I think Vidhi was instrumental in that. We were choosing certain words, we were finding a certain way, and she's wonderfully adept at that. It was her idea, the book was her idea, and so I think she deserves to be sitting up here as well. So please, a big round of applause for Vidhi, my editor, and the person whose idea this book is in fact, and it is her ownership, more than mine actually. So yeah, we worked at it sort of together, but having a girl child at home does help, so we're constantly talking about certain things, and I see her friends and how they are, sort of dealing with everything. So it's nice to be able to look back, and we didn't have anything. We didn't have anything. We had nothing. We picked up stuff from cousins. They told us that, that is the day that you will die if you get your period because you're bleeding. It's the beginning of your death, and all sorts of nonsense was told to us. So, you rely on just about anything that you can get your hands on. There's nothing better. But I hope that it is a girl's best friend for a few years, whenever they're going through. So things like measuring a bra, things like body hair, things like body odor, boys, their place in the universe, the whole idea of what is a no, safety, online safety. So we've dealt with a lot of stuff which is that whole period and time for young girls, where the curiosity is at its peak, but there isn't legitimate information. So it's not too much information, it's diagrammatic, it's reasonably simple, enough for kids to understand and to have a decent base for them to then navigate that time.
You spoke about getting this book into schools. Are you planning on any sort of activation which will take this book and these conversations into schools and into places where young girls are?
Well, I think now that when the book first came out, we had to sort of shut that conversation down in a week because not just half the country, but all of us also got COVID. So this was the deadly second wave, and so it just seemed highly inappropriate to talk about this, and the time wasn't right, and then there was a lot of changes in the publication itself. And so we found a time now to be able to bring this book out, and now we're going to see how we, manage to make it a lot more mainstream, because as I see on several mom groups, they're constantly saying that, look, if you've written this book, then why don't you take it at least to Tara's school, which is JBCN. So bring it there, let's talk about the book, let's get boys and girls equally to read it so that there's information about this. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do some work in that area.
Lovely. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this conversation gets normalized. You're very lucky, Tara read this book. I wrote a book for Krish, The Boy's Guide to Puberty, to Growing Up. He never read it.
Oh.
So thank you for, upholding your mother's writing efforts. With that, I'm going to throw the floor open to questions. I'm sure you have many questions, and I'm not going to compromise here. Hands up.
I want to ask you. So, this book is not just about puberty and periods. So, it deals with a lot of emotions, right? So, what are the kinds of emotions you've talked in this, especially during your growing up? What are the kind of emotions?
I think primarily one has embarrassment. One is awkward as a teenager. One doesn't know what the hell is going on and what are all these surges of feelings. So Tara, for example, knows that we've had a conversation where chatted about the fact that, you know, sometimes you feel excessively emotional, and that might be coming from your hormones. And after some time, when it calms down, you'll understand that my behavior was being a little weird. So you can take some time out and calm yourself down, and then come back and we can resume the conversation, so that at least you understand what's happening to you. Otherwise, it's like, what's going on? So I think there was a lot of awkwardness, there was a lot of embarrassment, there was a lot of like hush hush, nudge nudge surrounding this. So that sort of thing primarily.
Do you have any boys coming up to you and, you know, someone who's read? I know of one boy who was read, but
I have not so far, no.
my
Boys
son has
need
read
to
it.
read this book.
My son has read it. He's 11 years old, and I ensured that he reads it with his friends. So yeah, two boys I know that have read.
Questions?
Anyone else?
You know, this is the scariest moment when hands don't go up. So please put your hands up.
हेलो हाय मैम जैसे कि हम जानते हैं कि कोई भी बुक अगर हम लिखते हैं तो उसके पीछे का एक बहुत बड़ा रीजंस होते हैं या फिर मेहनत होती है तो शुरुआत कहाँ से हुई इस बुक को एज अ राइटिंग पब्लिक के सामने लाना
शुरुआत ये मेरी एडिटर है यहाँ पे, विधि भार्गवा, ये मेरी जूनियर है स्कूल से, मेरे भाई की क्लास में थी, मेरे को टिस्का दीदी बुलाती थी, और इन्होंने ये आइडिया मुझे प्रपोज किया लॉकडाउन में। और पहले मैंने बोला कि नहीं, आई डोंट थिंक कि वो, शी सेड बट प्लीज़ थिंक अबाउट इट, बिकॉज ऐसी किताब की बहुत ज़रूरत है। आप इसको एक माँ की तरफ से अपनी बेटी के लिए एक लेटर के रूप में लिख सकते हैं। So then the idea evolved, we discussed, then I started writing. We thought initially that we'll do it January, February, March, every month of the year, 12 chapter ऐसे करेंगे. But then we, you know, went back and forth, and lockdown का अच्छा इस्तेमाल हुआ, and I was able to take inputs from Vidhi, from Dr. Mala, from Dr. Malvika, and actually write the book.
Yes, Khushbu.
Hi Kiran, hi Tisca. Because I can see it's about puberty, periods, pimples, people, a lot of P's, we've talked about periods and we're talking about puberty. All of us, you know, all girls here have gone through the same. But what's your message as a mother to all other mothers out there? Because like you said, there are a lot of expectations. Certainly there are a lot of filters once you enter the puberty stage. Girl is supposed to sit with crossed legs, and then, you know, you're supposed to maybe not have hair on body, I don't know why, and your mustache is suddenly, you know, everybody has mustache, but we can't, and you know, it's funny because I remember I went out to take out my mustache for the first time, and when I came back home, my dad was playing cards with his cousins, and he just looked at me and said, "You look strange, you look different today," and I was like, no, I'm fine. So it's about a lot about body language, not body language, about body acceptability, because the world is harsh for growing up girls. You know, your breast size, your height, your color, your complexion, your pimples on your face, it's gross. Like, nobody talks about boys' pimples. So I'm asking you, how can parents, especially mothers, help an adolescent girl navigate through all of that? Because it's very important.
Thank you, Khushbu. I think it's a relevant question, very relevant question, and thank you for it. You know, and this is not just for mothers of daughters, it's for mothers of sons as well. There was this one story that was floating around on the internet or on WhatsApp chats, that there was this boy who knew about periods because he had a sister or his mother had told him about it, and there was a girl who bled in a school bus, and he gave her his sweater because her skirt got stained, and he gave her her sweater, his sweater or his jacket, and she was able to leave the bus without getting embarrassed, and he saw her home or whatever. I think that we in Bombay or Delhi or Bangalore or Calcutta, as mothers, as women, are so aware of everything. But in smaller towns, there's still misinformation regarding certain things. We know the temple situation, we know situations where girls are still not allowed to enter the kitchen, they're not made to sleep in the same room, there's all sorts of strange things that go around, because India's many Indias, it's not just one India. So in that sense, I feel that if the book has the possibility of a translation, if it goes to schools, if it becomes a more mainstream conversation, there'll be less suffering for men and women, because eventually if a woman is awkward, she's maladjusted, she brings that to the relationships in her life. So if mothers, daughters, sons, fathers can read this book together, chapter by chapter, discuss it openly, I mean, what's the big deal? We're getting more and more woke as we are, as we're talking about, you know, body shaming. You can no longer say fat. It's you know, you'll say other things for that. You know, you're probably, I don't know what they're using for saying fat. Healthy. Yeah. You're healthy, or I would say horizontally challenged, or like whatever it is that you want to, vertically challenged, or I don't know what, something they would say. But the idea being that as we are evolving as a species, we're getting closer and closer to an idea of more decency, more acceptance, more inclusivity, more equality. And I hope that this is a small, tiny little splish splash in that pool, where young girls have a lot more support, a lot more legitimacy, because knowledge is power. So if they have that knowledge with them, which is backed by science, and there's diagrams and there's other things. So if they can read it and understand for themselves that this, I'm not saying, if somebody says, nahi, ye nahi karna, they say, why? What do you mean? Why should I not? And then they have logic behind it, and they can take a stand, and that I hope is what happens, because how Sanjay and I have sort of our style of parenting has been to call a vagina, a penis, a breasts. So there's no like hichi and you know some strange shying away code words, nicknames for things, because why? What is this whole embarrassment around the body? Every body has a body. And then we need to like talk about it in a very sort of scientific fashion, particularly when it comes to things which can impact a child. I mean, you're most sensitive when you're an adolescent. So you need to have that kind of support. There can be such awkwardness with growing breasts. What is the right bra? What is the right kind of you know, support you need? How to measure body hair, like you said about your mustache. You know, I mean, these things can make a person very, very awkward. So I think the wish is to open all of this up and take the shame away. That's the wish.
Thank you. And eventually, hopefully, the girl who had to tie the sweater around would not be in a situation where she felt embarrassed that she was stained. It would be perfectly normal.
Actually, I read the first chapter, and there was a topic for breast, perfect fit, the section was called. I wanted to know is, actually in my body, near my breast, there are scars, there are like stretch marks, and I have nobody who actually have stretch marks at my particular age. So I never had that body positivity around me. So what is your say upon that? Like as a mother, if you know that this is a bit different, your child is growing up quicker than other child, and plus it's always different for different people. So what is your say on the topic of growing quicker than your particular age? Is that worrying or is that normal?
So in a particular section of the book, I don't remember where specifically, we've spoken about the idea that we're an interesting bouquet, human beings. We're tall, short, wide, narrow, and there is no standard. You know, the times are such that everybody is questioning beauty standards. We are questioning that why is fair beautiful? Why is sultry not beautiful? Particularly in India, most people are, you know, we have a wonderful skin tone. Our olive skin tone is beautiful. But there is that idea of gori chitti and all of that. So somebody growing faster and that causing stretch marks, it's all beautiful. It's all part of the journey of your life, of your own individual imprint. And I think that when you love yourself I know it's a very big idea to put out there and say, you must love yourself, and it sounds like somebody's preaching. But it starts with these simple things to say, yeah, this is just the way I was meant to be. This is how it is, and this is wonderful. And not everything is being perfect, because perfection is just what is perfect, who is perfect. So, and the definition of beauty is changing so rapidly over the ages. In Japan, they would torture women. Small shoes, yeah. Chinese, not Japanese. Japanese also.
Japanese
also, yeah.
Chinese, when they were
Chinese
still under the rule of others, they used to put a smaller shoe on their legs because leg doesn't grow and it remains small. As well as for men, it was longer hair. Hair used to go to the waist. But later on, it was not adapted enough, and they left the culture. But there are few people who still have the small feet.
With the rings around your neck to make your neck longer, and all of these ideas. I mean, I think it's just women have had to make themselves acceptable to the male idea, and somewhere other women have also pushed that idea forward. Ki ye sundar hai, ye sundar nahi hai. But today it's a time where you can wear wide leg jeans, you can wear low rise, you can wear boot cut, you can wear cropped joggers, whatever you like. I think also in terms of beauty, anybody who's confident, witty, intelligent, carries themselves well is just as attractive. So the attractiveness is not necessarily कि आपके पैर छोटे हैं, or any of those things. So yeah, your stretch marks make you beautiful, unique.
Thank you.
Hi Tisca, I'm Harry Anand. I would like to know, in the entire book, have you even covered when a child attends puberty? There's a lot of hormonal change that he goes through, and a lot of back answering because I'm mother of two. So my elder one is 11-year-old, and I could often see all of a sudden he started rebelling or argumenting thoroughly. Is there any advice that you would like to give to young mothers?
I would not dare. My daughter sitting in the front row, I would not dare to give advice. Of course, she understands, because we've spoken about this, that there are hormonal changes that will happen, and also the other thing that I have always maintained, that any mother is a human being. Before she became your mother, she was a human being. So she has pain, she has anger, she has her own life. She's a shade of grey like any other human being. Like you, she's also a human being. So she's bound to be imperfect. So what we have done for years, Javed Saab spoke about this actually very beautifully, where he said that औरत को देवी बना के उसका जीना हराम कर देते हैं. We make it impossible for women. That she's supposed to be this great mother who is this mothering, fountain of love. It won't always happen. You won't always be this picture of sunshine and givingness, and you have your own requirements as a human being, your time with your friends, your time to watch something, do whatever you want. So this is a conversation that I've had with Tara, that Mama is also a human being, and if you have something you want to say, ask me. Say, Mama, I need your time, you have to talk to me now, or it's important, today I want to talk to you. So it might not happen at that moment unless it's an emergency, in which case it will obviously happen. But if it's not possible to do it then and there, then I will make time to understand, okay, what is it? Let's understand this. Let's figure this out. What was troubling you? So we spend time decoding that issue, which has become a flashpoint. We sort of pull it apart to see what was it at the end of the day. And sometimes it's just miscommunication or unfulfilled expectations. That I wanted this but you didn't do this. So, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't, and this is what's going on with me. So can we how can I best make up for this? Sort of